It is a truth universally acknowledged that a sewist in possession of an excessive quantity of fabric and upwards of 30 minutes of leisure must be in want of a new occasion to justify her labors. And when such an occasion does present itself, it is equally certain that no abundance of gowns, however fetching or plentiful, shall dissuade her from the delightful necessity of making yet another. So true. So my cousin and his wife are expecting a baby in a little over a month. And not only is it their first child, but they're the first ones in like our generation to start having kids. So we would all be thrilled anyway, obviously, but we're all just experiencing like Mrs. Bennet hearing that Netherfield Park has been lit at last levels of excitement around here. By the way, you can go ahead and brace yourself for what some people might consider an excessive amount of Jane Austen references. So anyway, we're going to be throwing a Jane Austen tea party themed baby shower, which I couldn't be more excited about. So I'm going to take you along as I make a new dress and also do a couple of crafts and things for the shower. And we have 2 days, so let's get going. So for the dress, obviously I'm not going to be going for historical accuracy here. So I want something that invokes the Pride and Prejudice style and feeling, but also ties in some of the other elements of the event. So Jane Austen, but also tea party and baby shower. So, you know, kind of like the empire waist, the puffy sleeves, maybe something a little floral. And if you're thinking, wow, you just described exactly what you're wearing right now. Yeah, but this dress will be different. The dress that I'm thinking is a little more inspired by this Selkie dress that I came across a while ago. I think it's so beautiful. And it has a few more details than this one. It has like the bow in the front, it has some ruffles. It's just very sweet looking and I think perfect for this occasion. And you know what? I really like this style of dress. I love pretty floral maxi dresses and sort of like an empire or baby doll top. So, you know what? I promise you, I am going to get tons of wear out of this new one as well. So I have this fabric that I recently used to make a House of CB. I wanted to say CBD again. It's basically the exact same fabric that House of CB uses for some of their dresses. This one I think is so perfect for a baby shower. I love like the bright pink roses. It kind of looks like something that you would see in a baby girl's room, which, oh, they're having a girl. I feel like that's maybe kind of implied by the theme. But also, I remember when I first saw this fabric, and of course by fabric, I mean bedsheet that I found at the thrift store, I remember thinking that it made me think of a tea party dress. And so I think that this will be so perfect to make a little Jane Austen tea party baby shower dress out of. For the dress, I am going to be using the Seashell Summer Dress pattern by Daria Pattern Making. Daria Pattern Making? I'm not quite sure. And I'll also have a link to it down in the description. I'm just going to hack the pattern ever so slightly to make it match the Selkie inspiration a little more. And obviously I'll show you how I do that, but it should all be pretty small fixes. So yeah, let's get sewing. Since the dress is a mini length, I extended the skirt so that it would be long enough to give dramatic sweep while casually taking a turn around the room, definitely not looking to attract attention from any gentleman with 10,000 pounds a year or anything like that. Then I cut out the rest of the pieces. I started by pressing down the center of the 2 front bodice pieces twice, creating a double fold hem. Then I pinned them together and sewed along the second fold line. After that, I pressed little pieces of interfacing on either side of the seam, kind of like 2 estranged lovers staring at each other across the ballroom. And then I did something almost as intimidating as someone with the social skills of a self-conscious peacock having to make conversation with strangers. I made buttonholes. Okay, here's a little tip to minimize the potential for ruining all your hard work while you open the buttonholes. Place pins just before the short end of the buttonhole. It's not perfect, but it does act as a barrier, so it isn't as easy to rip through the little walls of thread you just sewed. Then I folded down and stitched the two sides of the center seam to make a tunnel. So you can see the buttonholes, and then here's where I just stitched the seams down. Next, I cut the ribbons to make the bow on the front of the dress. To make sure the ribbons don't fray like Mrs. Bennet's nerves, finish them with the heat of Lady Catherine's disapproval. But if you haven't threatened to pollute the shades of Pemberley lately, you can use a lighter. You can call my safety pin Mr. Wickham because it ran away with this ribbon through the tunnel that I just made. You know, if you're not a Jane Austen fan, this video must be insufferable for you. Much like Miss Bates is to Emma, am I right? After that, I picked up the front ruffle piece and pressed the wrong sides together. I cranked up the tension on my sewing machine so that it was more intense than the Mr. Darcy hand flex scene. This is a little hack that I use so that the machine does some of the gathering for me. It's not technically correct, I'm not telling you to do it, but it does make the process a little easier. Then I pinned and sewed the ruffle to the top of the bodice. Okay, I just finished pressing the front bodice, and look at how cute that's looking. Here, let me tie it real quick because it sort of ruches, so it'll be even more adorable once it's all done. As you can see, you see the vision? This is so cute, right? Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I love it. So I'm about to start on the back bodice, but really quick, there's something else super cute that I really wanted to show you. You stay here, I'll be right back. Okay, so this is one of my gifts for the baby shower. And it's Pride and Prejudice for kids ages, I think like 1 to 3 or something like that. Oh my gosh, I have been flipping through this ever since I bought it. I'm like low-key tempted to keep it for myself. But here, just look at Elizabeth's face when she's being proposed to by Mr. Collins. By the way, I wanted to just put some boiled potatoes in the tea party spread just so I could pair it repeatedly. What fine boiled potatoes. It's been many a year since I've seen such an exemplary vegetable, but I am bringing a vegetable plate, so that line will still get used. I feel like whoever illustrated this is, like me, a fan of the 2005 Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley. I mean, look, I don't have proof, but I'm just saying, I feel like some of these characters, there's Georgina, there's Mr. Wickham, there's Darcy, there's Jane. I don't know. I feel like they look like the actors in the 2005 version. That is my personal opinion. It's so funny seeing such a condensed version of Pride and Prejudice. It really drives home how much of a whirlwind and how kind of crazy the book is. Like, Elizabeth went traveling with her aunt and uncle. They looked around a stately home called Pemberley. It was Mr. Darcy's house. Suddenly, Mr. Darcy arrived home. It's like, what? He was there? At his own house? That's crazy. Also, I love, apparently, they're like eating a peacock, but the illustrations are super cute. I was going to say, if I was a kid, I would spend hours looking through them. I'm a fully grown adult, and I have already spent a lot of time flipping through and looking at them. So don't know what that tells you. But Pride and Prejudice, to me, has one of the best first lines of any novel ever. Like, call me Ishmael. The clocks had just chimed 13 o'clock. Once upon a midnight dreary. I don't know. To me, the greatest line in all of literary history is, "It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a great fortune must be in want of a wife." And there it is on the back. They even have a little illustration of Jane Austen right there. It's perfect. I think that it's so cute. I think that it's so fun, and hopefully they like it. Listen, you gotta raise them right, you know? I already know that any kid who grows up in our family is going to grow up surrounded by Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, and I'm glad. I fully support that. But, you know, Jane Austen, also very important, and I am doing everything I can to make sure that she gets started on the right foot. Anyway, I need to get started on the back bodice, so I'm going to start by sewing the darts. I feel like this hair is holding up surprisingly well. I wanted to do this partially for the aesthetic, but also because one of my New Year's resolutions was to learn how to do more hairdos last year. That was my New Year's resolution from last year. So, you know, I feel like it's about time I probably start. when I was a kid, my dad would have to travel a lot for work. And so, we had a lot of girls' nights with just me, my mom, and my sister. And every once in a while, my sister would be like, hey, can we watch one of the book movies? And by book movies, she meant either Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility, with the one with Emma Thompson and Kate Winslet and Alan Rickman, which is another fantastic movie. That was what she always called them, book movies. And I think that's just so cute and so sweet. And we watched quite a lot of Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility. Although, funny enough, I have seen the Emma with Gwyneth Paltrow. I've also seen one with Anya Taylor-Joy, which, look, cinematically it was beautiful, but they left so much out of that script. My mom and I watched it with my dad and my husband, and they had like no idea what was going on the entire time. But interestingly enough, Emma is probably one of the Jane Austen movies that I've seen the least. But I think honestly, Emma is the Jane Austen book that I've read the most. I absolutely loved it. I don't know. I love that Emma was so in control, and obviously she had a very different social and economic standing than the Bennets did. But I don't know. I liked her. She had a lot of spirits. I felt like I related to her. Like I remember I went to a dance when I was like early high school or something like that. And like no one asked me to dance and I was like I know what this feels like. Like this is speaking to my soul. Just like silly teenager stuff, but I did truly love Emma and I still do. My copy is so worn out. That book has been through a lot, but I love it. I'll never give it up. Once I finished the darts, I started gathering the skirt to attach to the bodice pieces. Oh, another quick tip. I stuck a pin in the middle of the front of the skirt since the front, the center front is a little bit higher. Like it's a little bit of a parabola. Is that what that was called back in algebra? But it's hard to tell the shape once it's all gathered. So I just stuck a little pin in there so that I could tell where the center was and align that a little easier. So we were on a family beach vacation pretty recently, which, quick plug, I did make a video of all of the outfits that I made for that trip. It is a very long video, but I think it's pretty fun. I had a lot of fun making it. Anyway, while we were on the trip, I was reading The Other Bennet Sister by Janice Hadlow, I think is the author, which honestly, I just generally don't like it when someone tries to be another author, Like someone else tries to like build on a classic. And especially Jane Austen. Like I remember reading, I think it was Death Comes to Pemberley, and like it was a while ago. If I read it now, I might have a slightly different opinion. Like I didn't hate it or anything. I just didn't really enjoy it. Like it didn't have any of like the Jane Austen charm in my opinion. But again, that was the very long time ago. I think it was in like high school or something when I read that. So take it with a grain of salt. But as I said, I was reading The Other Bennet Sister on this vacation. And you know what? I actually enjoyed it. It's about Mary Bennet, who, is kind of like the forgotten one of the Bennet sisters. And so the first like third of the book takes place like during the events of Pride and Prejudice. So you just get to hear a little bit more of what's happening from Mary's perspective. And then the rest of the book is kind of, its own thing. Mary growing up a little bit, developing, stepping into her own. I think that it was really interesting. Like, let's be real, it's basically a Pride and Prejudice fanfic, right? But also, I like fanfics, some of them. It's kind of fun when someone takes a minor character and gives a little more perspective and insight into what they're thinking and why they're acting the way that they are. It's almost like the Maleficent movies, when they come out with like the villain's point of view. I mean, obviously, Mary isn't the villain in Pride and Prejudice by any stretch, but she gets the least amount of screen time compared to the other sisters. And she very much is, the typical middle child. She's overlooked in her family, and she's also, let's be honest, overlooked by the readers or the viewers if you're, watching the movie. And I think it's very interesting too, because obviously, so much of Pride and Prejudice and the social commentary that Jane Austen writes is about, the marriage market and what a woman can bring into a marriage. And obviously, being beautiful is a big commodity, especially back then, when you needed to attract a good husband. And so, if you're not beautiful, like, what do you do? I enjoyed getting, you know, a little peek into what Mary's perspective of the whole thing may have been, why she acted a certain way, a little bit of a redemption arc in some sense, because I do think that the two parts that she really stands out is when she, is willing to marry Mr. Collins, who has no interest in her, and when her dad tells her to stop playing piano at the ball and she's just absolutely mortified. And look, obviously, there's only one Jane Austen, no one else has been or will be, and that's all good. That is the way it's meant to be. But I think that the author did a pretty good job of writing in the style of Jane Austen. Obviously, Jane isn't putting out any new books. So this felt like something that you can read and enjoy if you've, already read her other books a million times and you're just craving something in that sort of style. And it also, is a kind of a fun look at what life for everyone may have been like after Pride and Prejudice ends. There are like a few things that I didn't like. I didn't love the way that the author kind of left the characterization of Charlotte Lucas, Charlotte Collins, who, marries Mr. Collins, becomes Charlotte Collins. I didn't really like the twist on her character, and I won't spoil too much because I do recommend it. I do. Again, it's not Jane Austen, but it's a fun read. And Caroline Bingley, I think she shows up quite a bit in this book, and I think especially given the context of the book, we could have gotten a little more of a nuanced perspective of her. Like, I don't want to spoil too much, but again, obviously this is a time period where a woman's well-being is heavily dependent on who she marries. So marriage obviously is very important, and being unmarried meant a lot more back then. And so again, not to spoil too much, but Caroline Bingley is looking for a husband, and is still very mean and condescending. Which I think that it would have been interesting to take a little more nuanced perspective of her being pretty much without marriage prospects. Again, I don't think that you need to change her character, but just provide a little bit of a different perspective on it, much like what happened with Mary. But anyway, I like flew through it. If you've read it or if you end up reading it, please let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But those are just a few of mine, and now it's time to sew the skirt and the bodice together. All right, so this is kind of how we're looking so far. It does look very weird, just draped over the dress that I'm already wearing. It looks like the sleeves are just different for some random reason because obviously the silhouettes are very similar. But I think that it's turning out so cute. I love this little bow detail. The ruffles are not staying up, but I think I might edge stitch and hopefully too once I add the sleeves in, that'll help. But yeah, we're looking so super cute so far. I'm kind of wondering if maybe I'll want to add like a ruffle or something to the bottom. Maybe not. Maybe that'll be too much. But anyway, you can see I've got this skirt attached to the bodice. I've got the bodice sewn together. So we're pretty good. I think I really just need to do the sleeves and then sew, obviously add a zipper, sew up the back, hem it, and we're in pretty good shape. This is coming right along, which is awesome. I'm so excited. So I am going to take a little break. I got to go walk the dog, who, by the way, is named Darcy after Mr. Darcy. It confuses everyone. People think that he's a girl all the time. I'm like, no, no, he's named after the Pride and Prejudice character, and then they usually get it. Anyway, gonna go walk Darcy, And yeah, we will reconvene. I might work on the sleeves or I might take a little break to do some other crafts for the baby shower. So we'll see how I feel when I get back, but I'll see you then. I did decide to finish up the dress first, and I started by finishing the center back seams, sewing them together, and adding a zipper. I wanted lots of ruffles I could use to hide from unwanted suitors. Trust me, baby showers are crawling with them. So I made some extra frills to add onto the top of the back bodice. And here, you can see my method of cranking up the machine tension, pulling a John Willoughby level of betrayal on me, because this ruffle ruffled too quickly, turned onto itself, and I accidentally sewed it into itself. I explained that badly, but if you're watching the video, you can see what I mean. I had to do some emergency seam ripping to save it. And you know what? I could have cut that part out. But I want to be real with you, even when it makes me look as foolish as telling a girl how embarrassing her family is while proposing to her. Once I gathered the ruffles, I pinned and sewed them to the back bodice. And here I am edge stitching the frills to the bodice so they stand up straighter than Mr. Collins when Lady Catherine sweeps into the room. All right, it is the next day. It is also the day before the shower, and so I have quite a few things I need to get done. First order of business is actually honestly the least important, but we're pretty close, is just finishing up the dress. So this is what I've got so far. I added the back ruffles, I added the zipper, and I sewed up the back. And so all I have to do is make the sleeves, add those in, and hem the bottom. So we're pretty close to done. I think I'm just going to go ahead and wrap that up. And after that, I have to go make some cupcakes. Then I'm going to do a little DIY decoration. So I'll take you guys along for that. One of them is also a little sewing project that I'm very excited about. And finally, I am going to make up kind of the template. We're going to be doing a few baby shower games. And so I have to get that all made up and ready for tomorrow. So yeah, let's just get into it. Let's just make the sleeves, get those added in, and rock this dress up. I started by finishing off the edges of the sleeve as thoroughly as Elizabeth finished Mr. Darcy after his first proposal. Like, so thoroughly, he apologized for running into her even though they were at his literal house. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fold like the hem of the sleeve down because that's a lot easier to do when it's flat like this. And then I'm going to sew the two sides right here of the sleeves together. Then I'm gonna refold this and I'm going to stitch two lines across here to insert the elastic in, and that'll create a nice little ruffle effect on the edge of the sleeve. And don't worry, I'll show you what I mean. So it'll be a little easier to understand in a second. But you know, it's actually funny. I was talking to my mom about this as I was like running around Target trying to find balloons and things for the baby shower. Quite honestly, and this is not a joke, I'm fully serious. I have spent more time planning and preparing for this baby shower than I did my literal wedding. Which, yeah, to be fair, that sounds like I've given a lot of time and energy to this baby shower. To be fair, I put like no effort into my wedding. I personally never wanted a big wedding. I always wanted to just do something small and kind of elope. And so 2 weeks before Memorial Day weekend, I texted my now husband and was like, hey, what if we just got married over Memorial Day weekend so that we could have an extra day off without having to use PTO? And they say every great love story has already been told. Love may be blind, but it is not dumb, and it does not come with unlimited PTO, unfortunately. And so that was basically what we did. We had 2 weeks later, we had a very small wedding just in my parents' backyard, just very, very casual. And it was very nice. Like my mom and my sister, actually, they put in all of the time and energy that I just simply did not want to invest. Honestly, Dennis, my husband, and I, we talk about this all the time. If we could go back and redo our wedding all over again, we would not change a thing. It was absolutely perfect. But, it is kind of funny too. I feel like, sometimes it's just easier to put in more effort when it's something that's for other people than it is, for yourself. And again, we had a wonderful wedding. We have absolutely zero complaints, but I just really, really want this to be such a nice baby shower. I hope that Sam feels super loved and know just how much we're all really looking forward to this new baby girl being in the world. And we all love her so much already. I'm literally getting teary eyed every time I think about it. They announced that they were pregnant on Easter. Like my mom randomly had just decided, you know what, it has been years since we've had like a family photo with everyone together. And so she was like, hey, everyone, like, line up. We're all going to take a photo together. And so we did. And we were just standing there. My mom was getting ready to take the photo. And then my cousin just blurts out, Sam's pregnant. And so there are photos of most of us, like a couple of people already knew, but most of us were like, what? Sam's pregnant? That's crazy. So we do have photos of the exact moment that several of us found out that we were going to have a little baby niece, although we didn't know it was a niece at the time, obviously. And I will talk about that story in just a little bit. But first, I'm going to go sew up the edges of these sleeves. So, just like I explained earlier, I started by sewing together the edges of the sleeves. Then, I folded the hem and sewed 2 lines of parallel stitches, but I kept a little gap in the second line of stitches, the one farther from the edge of the sleeve, so that I could run the elastic through it. And here I am, running the elastic through the sleeve with the speed of Lydia and Kitty headed to Meryton to buy ribbons when the militia is in town. I attached the sleeves onto the bodice before finishing the elastic so that I could get a better idea of how it fit and how tight I wanted the elastic to be. Then I folded down and sewed the shoulder of the sleeve. Once again, because I want this dress to have more ruffles than Mr. Darcy's shirt as he's walking across the fields at sunrise, I added bias tape to the shoulder so that I could run more elastic through it and create more ruffles at the shoulder. And finally, I sewed a double fold hem on the skirt, which means that I was done with the dress, but not with all of the sewing I needed to do for this baby shower. Okay, I have a quick story time, and please stick with me. I promise it does relate both to our next project and this giant pile of fabric in front of me. So last May was the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. Again, stick with me. I promise this relates to our Jane Austen Tea Party baby shower. So my whole family loves Star Wars. My sister and I grew up doing Star Wars nights with our cousins, which were basically a giant sleepover. We would all dress up as our favorite characters. I was always Princess Leia. We even had like a little Star Wars cookbook that were very, very basic recipes, but with Star Wars names. So we would make Yoda soda and Wookiees cookies. Oh, good times. And on Star Wars night, we would basically binge the entire Star Wars series, at least what was out when I was a kid. Now I think it would take like 3 days to get through all of the movies and everything that have come out. But when I was growing up, we would watch the prequels at night and then, we'd sleep. And then we would wake up in the morning and we would watch the last 3 episodes. And it was a lot of fun. It was just a big part of our childhood. We would play Star Wars all the times. We had a lot of the Star Wars toys and things like that. And so last May, like I said, was the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith coming out. And so to celebrate that, they re-released Revenge of the Sith in theaters. And so obviously our family went to go watch it. We had so much fun. I actually never saw Revenge of the Sith when it was in theaters the first time. I have like this kind of bad habit where I never see things when they're cool or when they're new. I only see things after everyone else has seen it and like moved on and it's been dead for a while. And then I'm like, wow, this is actually so cool. Does anyone else know about this? After the movie, we all went out to dinner. And while we were at dinner was when my cousin and his wife got the email with the gender of their baby. I guess they did it through like Amazon or something. Like they did their own test. It wasn't through like a doctor's office. I forget exactly how it went. But anyway, they got the email while we were at dinner and we were all kind of like, ooh, like not trying to put any pressure on them to read it in front of us. We were all like, yeah, you guys do what you want. But like, you know. So anyway, they decided, what the heck? They opened up the email and my cousin was scrolling through just looking for the result and he was like, it's female. And obviously we were all ecstatic and most of us were like, oh my gosh, we knew it was going to be a girl. And then we were like, wait a minute, a female? Did you just say you're having a female? And he was like, yeah, well, that's like what it says here. And so we've been teasing him about it ever since. We're like, oh, we can't wait to meet your little baby female. So for this next project, I'm going to use a bunch of my fabric scraps to make a little banner, you know, like they have the It's a Girl banners, but instead I'm going to make one that says It's a Female. I think it'll be just like a cute little touch to everything, hopefully. And if not, at least I think people will get a good laugh out of it. I know it wasn't, you know, it wasn't exactly a planned gender reveal party or anything like that, but I think that it was a very sweet moment. I kind of like that it was spontaneous and that half of us were wearing Star Wars shirts. I was literally wearing a Darth Vader muscle tank when I found out that I was going to be having a niece. It was a very memorable and sweet moment, but, you know, something we can kind of laugh about in there too, which I think are the best kind of memories. We didn't burn down any forest, which was really good. I think that that's very important for a gender reveal. Anyway, so to make the banner, I'm just going to go through, I just pulled a bunch of scraps from previous projects that are kind of pink or, you know, I think look kind of baby shower appropriate. And so I'm just gonna go through all of these. I think because I want it to look kind of cohesive. I don't want it to be too cluttered. If possible, I think I would like to stick to like 3 fabrics and just keep it nice and neat that way, I think. So then I can sort of have like a little repeating pattern, but we'll see. I'm not sure how many. I mean, I know that I have a lot of scraps in general here, but I'll have to look through each piece and figure out how much I actually have of each particular fabric. So I'm going to go do that. Okay, so these are the 3 fabrics I've decided on. I'm just kind of low key debating. I don't know. I'm kind of a minimalist. And so I kind of like the idea of just sticking to one fabric, which I could do if I go either with well, I think the only one I could really do that is if I went with either the hearts or this one right above it, which you may recognize as the leftover fabric from the first dress I was wearing in this video. But I'm just worried that that might be boring. I also think that the florals kind of go more with like the Jane Austen tea party theme. So I kind of like it from that standpoint. Okay, I just went spelunking in my fabric stash again, and I found scraps of this fabric that has just these little pink rosebuds scattered all over it. And I think that I like this a lot more. There's a lot more white space. It's a little more subtle, and I think it just goes a lot better with the striped and the heart fabric. So I think that I'm going to try using these 3 fabrics and see how I like it. I started by making a template for the banner. Basically, I measured and drew a big rectangle with little triangles on the bottom. Ignore the dimensions you see here because I realized this was too small. I'll have the final dimensions up on the screen if you want to use them for yourself. Using that template, I cut the banner pieces out of the pretty fabrics I had selected, as well as lining pieces out of a plain white fabric. So in total, I had twice as many banner pieces as I needed. Then, I pinned the main fabric and lining pieces right-sized together and sewed along all sides except the top edge. That done, I trimmed the edges, paying a little extra attention to the corners. and flipped the pieces inside out. I used a knitting needle to push out the corners so they're sharper than Anne Elliot's regret. Sorry, I feel like I've been making too many Pride and Prejudice references. I do know Jane Austen's other books. I took the pieces over to the ironing board to press them flat and pretty, which is exactly how Emma describes Jane Fairfax. And I finished the top edges with a zigzag stitch. Finally, I folded and sewed the top edges down to create a channel to run the ribbon through. After that, all that was left was to paint on the letters and pray that I didn't mess them up or suddenly forget how to spell female or something. By the way, please ignore the fact that I'm wearing one of my sister's old aprons from back when she worked at Cracker Barrel. I didn't want to ruin my clothes, and this is what my mom handed me. And finally, with almost the same level of excitement as the Netherfeld ball, the baby shower started. Hey guys, that's it. This is how the dress turned out. I'm so happy with it. I know obviously it isn't authentic Jane Austen, Georgian Regency period attire, but I do think it kind of has those same vibes. I think that it is very cute, and I think that I'm going to be able to get a lot of wear out of it. Although, if you would be interested in me making an authentic Jane Austen type of dress, leave a comment. I kind of low-key would love to do that, maybe for Halloween or something even. So I can easily be persuaded if you want to do that. But yeah, the baby shower, I think, went really, really well. Oh my gosh, I am actually really upset that I didn't get more footage of it. My cousin Brittany, who was the one who kind of put it on, she did such a beautiful job decorating. My mom and I helped. We brought some things, and it was kind of all hands on deck trying to put things together. But it turned out so gorgeous. She also made these little like chocolate mousse cups with little fresh raspberries on top that I have not stopped thinking about. It was incredible. Everyone loved It's a Female banner. Everyone got a really good laugh out of it, and I think it actually looked really good with the decor and everything. My cousin and his wife actually ended up taking it home with them. Overall, I think everything was a success. I love how the dress turned out. The banner was a hit. And most importantly, I think, and I certainly hope, that the mama-to-be felt very loved and supported by everyone. And now we're all just waiting for baby girl to arrive. And we're all so very excited. Probably even more excited than Mrs. Bennet is to meet a single man in possession of a good fortune. Sorry, okay, that's really the last of the Jane Austen jokes now. This video may have been a bit heavy-handed even if you are a Jane Austen fan. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, it really, really helps me out if you give it a thumbs up or leave a comment. And if you want more videos like this, please feel free to subscribe. I'd love to have you around here. And yeah, hopefully I will see you for the next video. Bye!